Did you feel like you make any social sacrifices?
For me, the hardest thing was in the beginning, so many people were afraid that having alcohol around me was going to induce something. So I definitely distanced myself from those sort of atmospheres just to, might as well not play with fire. It was such a empowering feeling to finally start the year with like a memory from the night before and like a clear head and ready to just like hit the ground running and make all of the, affirmations of that year come true.
I'm Todd Vande, CEO of Stark, and I've gone from vegan to paleo to keto to carnivore, from cryosaunas to ice baths, to training like an athlete to being injured like one, enhancing my mobility, enhancing my sex hormones with thousands of labs and various forms of scans. I'm surrounded by high-level medical doctors, naturopathic doctors, chiropractors, nutritionists, and strength coaches, all leading me in concert to a state of optimal health. And I'm here to share with you those stories, regardless of your age, your genes, or your medical conditions. Today's guest is one of the most dialed-in master coaches on the Stark team. His name is Colton Danz. He's in his early 30s. He's a father, a recovering alcoholic, and an absolute machine, which you'll see as soon as he steps in front of the camera when it comes to his personal health and certainly his discipline. But what really sets him apart isn't just his lifestyle. It's the way he brings high-level performance, athleticism, and purpose to his coaching, especially with some of the most high-powered CEOs in the country and in Orange County. So we're going to dig into his personal story, his training philosophy, his struggle with alcoholism, how he used that struggle to connect with people, and what drives his obsession with movement quality and explosive performance.
All right, so you're obviously emotionally connected to what we do at Stark. Where does that come from for you? Where does that emotional connection come from?
If I had to think about it, Stark to me is like a safe haven. So as you're aware, before I came into here, I had done a 3-month stint doing sobriety. So working on going into rehab and handling all of that. I was still in the fitness industry beforehand, but leading this sort of imposter life, as I think you probably are familiar with, a lot of the people in our industry have the work hard, play harder mindset. And I definitely won the trophy in that regard.
On the play hard side?
On the work hard and the play hard. I did both very effectively, but overall the play hard ended up winning for me. So I had, prior to coming to Stark, done 3 months of intensive rehab to kind of quell my demons.
What did that look like? Like, what's intensive rehab?
It was, well, for one, you have to understand the amount of consumption that I was at. I was drinking close to 45 shots of vodka a day. So an entire handle, while simultaneously running 8 classes a day and simultaneously sustaining like 11% body fat.
That's really shocking. How did it affect the next day when you got up to go to work?
You wake up and you survive the 3 hours before the shakes start to settle in. Find yourself to the
shakes because of the absence of alcohol?
Shakes because of the absence of alcohol. So part of the reason that forced me into sort of coming out to the world that had no idea that I was leading this double life of being a closeted, high-functioning alcoholic and simultaneously a very respected strength coach was that I had all of the things dialed in. So I knew exactly how much time I had, but towards the end, it really came to a head. I was having full-blown neuropathy where I looked like a Parkinson's patient walking if I did not have alcohol. It was very robotic. I didn't go up and down the stairs at my apartment.
Were you literally shaking as well?
Shaking, loss of like normal gait function. So I couldn't go up and down stairs whatsoever without holding onto the railing like intensely because my knees and my ankles would not correspond appropriately for like proper flexion and everything like that. So it was more so like I was scared to death and I had to come to the conclusion that I'm probably going to die in a couple of months, or I need to just finally face my demons and learn to live a life where I'm not running away from everything that makes me uncomfortable through substance.
That must have been hard to make that final decision to check yourself in, right?
Yes. And the reason why is because you have to finally, as somebody who's very proud and for the longest time had to let ego drive me, to allow yourself to understand, like, I am powerless, it's very challenging. It's very humbling. It's humiliating. There's a lot of, hatred, self-hatred that you have when you get to that point. So to allow all those things to sort of come to the forefront and surface and confront them and learn how to understand that while you may have made mistakes, there are plenty of people out there living that exact same life on a regular basis and doing just fine. So, as you come to...
Meaning they're functioning alcoholics and they're okay? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say their quality of life is great, obviously, having lived it myself, but you can get through life, and I would say probably a lot of people do on a regular basis that you have no idea.
Mm-hmm. So self-loathing, we're going to talk about Stark and everything and your experience as a coach, but I'm really interested, is self-loathing a critical part of being an alcoholic or having some substance abuse?
For mine, it was kind of this revolving cycle, because you self-loathe and you hate the way that you feel. So you drink, and then it goes away to get away from that pain. And then once you wake up the next morning, it resurfaces tenfold, because you're now again, smacking yourself upside the head for recreating the same pattern that is constantly just throwing you into this cyclic environment of never really like finding yourself, learning how to deal with anything. It's just all artificial.
That self-loathing concept, I think, maybe to a lesser degree, those that are not alcoholics or have substance abuse problems have as well. I think I have some of that.
Oh,
assuming it's common, it's normal, like a normal part of human development to recognize that you have that.
Right.
The difference is that you medicated yourself with alcohol, and like someone like me, I just fight through it without the alcohol.
Yeah, or you have somebody in your corner that you're talking to that's there for you. So you have that confidant that you can share, those uncomfortable feelings. They will either, validate or contradict. Sometimes getting the validation of those feelings is correct, because that's how you have that introspection of growth. But for me, it was just, nobody knew that I was doing this, or maybe they had some idea just because of tendencies that they would catch on the weekends where it's like, damn, this guy goes really hard. I don't know how he seems so fine on Monday. But yeah, it sort of just came to be the state of being.
And it's so interesting to me to know this about you. Most wouldn't think that this is what your past is, but most people that know you at least a little bit too very well are impressed with who you are as a person. Meaning at your age, how old are you?
I'm 30. Sometimes I forget. 33, almost 34.
So at your age, knowing yourself as well as you do, and being such a rock inside of our community, and that's not just among our team members, but among the students as well, springs out of this early development, this recognition, this wall that you smacked into, right? and then you had to work really hard to repair yourself. And I'm sharing this because you are where most others are when they're in their 50s.
Right.
And the process of development, because of the lack of the brick wall, takes a lot longer. And so it's a really interesting personal and professional development barrier that you had to overcome that enabled you to develop faster than most other people. How is that? And that's just the psychological, emotional component of your development. What about the physiological development? Like, what do you think that there was a role that your substance abuse played in getting you to where you are today from a physical standpoint and a discipline standpoint? Because you seem to exude a lot of that as well.
I mean, it definitely showed me that, considering the state that I would put myself and induce myself into on a regular basis, there's not a lot of excuses for why I can't get out of bed on a regular day just because I'm too tired. And so, when you carry that in, throw that together with sports and growing up in a mind state or a time period where coaches could actually tell you when you did a bad job, all that accumulating together, that definitely did prepare me. But I think psychologically, it just showed me that your body can go through, or physiologically, that your body can be put through the ringer over and over and over again and continue to get back up and re-find itself and reestablish some semblance of health. And that is a very encouraging motivator that I utilize with my students on a regular basis for sure.
Mm-hmm. And so you put yourself through a lot, physiologically speaking. The impact on your liver, on your metabolism, the fact that your body recognizes alcohol as a toxin and shuts everything down metabolically to deal with that toxin, which gives you the euphoric feeling.
Right.
What was how was your body composition, your strength? And you probably didn't know about your cardiovascular health, right?
I mean,
mental well-being was definitely, you were struggling in that category.
The mental well-being was definitely, there was a giant on that wheel of health in that aspect for sure. I mean, I honestly sit there and wonder on a regular basis how my composition was at it, where it was, because we did have an in-body, which is not a DEXA, but it is some measurable variables that we can look at on a course of time to try get some trends. And I was always 11, 12, like 10%, somewhere in that range. I don't know how, but I mean, one of the biggest things that scared the hell out of me the first time that I came to Stark was when I did my first labs. I thought that it was going to show some serious liver damage. And I have had elevated enzymes from time to time, but you know, just being able to see what the body can go through and come back from and re-find its health, it's pretty astonishing.
Yeah. I mean, that's, it really is an indicator of what we're capable of in terms of healing ourselves by removing a giant barrier.
Right.
A lot of our students, of course, face issues with alcohol.
Oh yeah.
And they don't understand that they're mere inches away from experiencing life on a whole nother level in terms of it being fulfilling and energy and connecting with people and doing things that are beyond what they can currently do for their families and other loved ones, right?
Right. And I think one of the saddest things and one of the most striking things that I was probably aware of, but I had never drawn the lines together, is when I was in rehab, one of the things that they told me that was I used with my students on a regular basis, because alcohol has become so socially acceptable, while there are plenty of other substances out there that I'm not encouraging, but I would say are probably, if you look at the ramifications physiologically to the body, are far less impactful, that they don't want to venture towards because of what social norms or where the dollars have gone to
crazy.
kind of drive all of that. But when we were in rehab, we learned that amongst any substance that you can put inside your body to create mind-altering effects, there is not one that your body tries to expel faster than alcohol. You could do a line of cocaine, not that I'm saying to do that, you know, heroin, whatever it may be, your body is less focused on getting that out of you faster than alcohol, which would tell me that you probably should not be drinking it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's not really much of a place for it. I know you're completely sober, I'm assuming.
Over 4 years, yeah.
I drink a few times a year, and, you know, I kind of chuckle and think I'm going to give my liver a workout. And it's quite remarkable how quickly I recover, but it's so infrequent.
Oh yeah.
It's a toxin curveball my body doesn't face over and over and over
Right.
again. Unlike a lot of our students. How difficult is it for you to get your students to recognize that that's essentially a brick wall between where they are and where they actually want to be in their health journey?
I mean, it's very challenging. And I would say the biggest challenge that you overcome is not necessarily, I mean, quite frankly, most of my students, especially since they're in their, you know, late 30s, 40s, 50s, so on and so forth, they don't even necessarily drink because they enjoy it anymore. They feel like they have to live up to the persona that they initially created their friend groups with. They don't understand that a lot of the times the people like you, and that just makes the environment a little bit easier for everyone to feel comfortable. But more often than not, they cave before they actually realize the power that they have over their friend group. And that more often than not, especially myself, my biggest fear for the longest time with alcohol was, how am I going to go on a date? How am I going to hang out with friends without drinking? Because it's just everything, you know, when you're 20 plus is somehow involved around spirits.
Are you okay? We just talk about alcohol this whole podcast?
I'm perfectly fine.
I've got a lot of questions that are not for you that we can get to at a different podcast.
Yeah, sure.
More strength training related.
Yeah.
I just think this is so relevant.
Yeah.
And this when I'm in and among our students socializing, and I do a lot of that, alcohol is always a cornerstone of the events. It's a dinner, everybody's drinking, I'm eyeballing them all, make them feel a little bit comfortable. I generally don't ever really at all.
Yeah.
Especially in front of students. But they do believe that this is common, just like you just sort of explained it a different way. A student will tell me that they have to drink for their career.
Right.
They have to drink to socialize. They have to drink to build relationships. And I can understand that. I mean, a matter of fact, my brother, who spent a lot of time in Russia, as you know, the Russians with whom he was building relationships generally won't trust anybody until they drink a bunch of vodka with you, and you just let all your walls down and really be yourself.
Right.
I mean, there is an element to that, right?
Right.
That
Your inhibitions are no longer there.
and so people see, or wine is truth serum. You heard that?
Right. Yep.
And so have you found a way to connect with people like you are drinking, but without the truth serum?
Yeah. I mean, just be fine being strikingly vulnerable without the presence of alcohol. I mean, the number one thing.
Is that something that you learned through your journey?
Yeah. I think, it started at Stark. It took a year of me being at Stark to finally feel comfortable enough to share with Amir and yourself that I was sober, because I was so fearful. And in this particular sense, you asked why Stark is such a place that I love, and why I love Stark is because you very rarely go to a gym where everybody that's inside it truly embodies, at least for the most part. We have younger team members, so they occasionally will, like you said, maybe a few times a year, have some drinks with some friends. But most everyone in this gym, at least employees wise, aligns with our values. And so that's why I covet this place so heavily, and why I'm so open, such an open book, sharing my vulnerabilities to my students, is that it allows people to understand who you are. They recognize alcohol isn't present, and you develop even stronger bonds, because it's not that we only have this incredible bond when this particular substance is there. I'm okay letting you see that side of me without anything being there, which is true vulnerability. And in my opinion, true vulnerability is the only way to really create meaningful connection.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting that you describe it that way, because I don't know that you're aware, but I've observed you in speaking with me and with others, that you do behave in a vulnerable fashion. Like, it is weird to see a 33-year-old man tear up when talking about something that's important to you. You've done it with me. I'm sure you've done it with others. Most people need some sort of substance to enable them to get to that point. And you just show up and you do it. That's something that I've developed over many years, and probably hasn't been until, I don't know, my late 40s, early 50s, until I actually was comfortable exposing myself to the degree that I would tear up. And I've seen other students that are a little bit older than me even, or maybe a little bit younger. And as they've gone through various types of therapies like ketamine assisted therapy, then they get to that state because they realize that that's in them. They don't even recognize it. And so back to the fact that you face these things at such a young age, the way I see them is that all of that was a blessing to you. I have no doubt. And I know that you experienced it. It was a miserable, terrifying, demoralizing, depressing, and anxiety inducing experience for you, I'm sure. And even just applying to the job here was scary, right?
Yeah.
All of that came because of what you went through. But today you are 20 years ahead from an emotionally developed standpoint compared to other men. Isn't that interesting how that works out? Like, you just faced a couple of decades of pain and anguish that most men stretch out.
Right.
And instead very slowly, it's like Chinese water torture.
Instead of trying to keep my head above water, I just threw a giant anchor of a handle of vodka and just sunk right to the bottom of the ocean, hit rock bottom. And fortunately, I was able to break those chains and float back to the surface. And now it's pretty easy hanging out up here. So
today it is fortunate that you went through it. At the moment, before you went to rehab, not fortunate, right? Like, it could have spanned decades, and then you would have died in a hospital somewhere, stomach cancer or liver issues. I mean, I have a close friend college roommate of mine. I loved this guy. He died of alcoholism. He was maybe in his early 40s when he had his first liver transplant. And then he somehow got a second one and died of alcoholism when he was about 50. So about eight years ago. That's a fairly common story. What you've done is not common. And he went to AA and relapsed, of course, many, many times. How is it that, what's the fight like? How is it that you're able to maintain that?
Well, if I didn't say part of it is spite and a little bit of ego, I would be lying.
Well, I mean, that's useful.
I've always been somebody who, once I voice something to somebody else, the thought of going back on that and changing my tune, just is the hypocrisy there is just so unsettling to me.
Some self-loathing.
It leads to self-loathing. And so I can do something just purely based out of the fact that I know I told somebody else I'm going to do it, and to not fall short in that regard, which I think is, for the number of folks that I've seen who have been in this for a long time, there is a number of those people who have shared similar stories where it's like, just because I, said it to the world, and now I know that there's people who are expecting this from me, that if I don't do it, I know I'm letting them down, or they have something to hold over me. Part of that is it. The other part, and I would be lying if I would say that was that stint, or this now lasting stint, was the first time I tried getting sober. I did try years before when I was encouraged by an ex-girlfriend, and I remember going into an AA room, and I was sitting around hearing people tell the exact same stories, ones that were very similar to myself, hiding bottles and jackets in your closet and in drawers in the kitchen, so that way everywhere that you go, you have some way to, sneak a sip in. And at that time, I was not willing to hear what they had to say and draw the similarities between our stories. I was just, oh, wow, you have a kid and you do that? I would never do that if I had a kid. Then I started going in, and when I was in rehab, you're spending a lot of time around other guys sharing stories, and a lot of people don't want to be there, but you start to recognize how similar the thought processes are, that no matter how drastically different the stories are from the level of severity that someone was willing to go to get their next fix, that I was either going that way, that the person that's telling the story that's like laughing at it, like, oh, young buck, you weren't even close to me, they were heading my direction. And so when you understand that there's this continuum, just like when it comes to training, and you fall somewhere on it, but either way, it always leads this way, it's an easier way to make those decisions and understand that, like, I can't head that direction.
What's been your level of success with speaking to students about the alcohol barrier to their health, and helping them, encouraging them, somehow leading them away from it?
I try not to venture down that path too often if I don't have to. I 100% share my experience, but I grew up in a religious household that kind of shoved religion down my throat, and that's why for myself, I'm not extremely religious. And so I try to approach most things that way. I want to let you know where I have vulnerabilities. If they align with your vulnerabilities, I'm more than happy to share with you how I conquered that. And I think that has had a lot of my students gravitate towards asking me questions without me really having to prompt them into it. And then it's just happy to share. Any day that they've had is probably never as bad as mine. And I was still able to maintain some semblance of health internally, probably not so much, but from a aesthetic standpoint, which a lot of people want, you can do it. I wouldn't encourage it. It's very challenging. And my job had me moving thousands of pounds of weights for 9 hours a day when I was at my last job. So if you have a job like that, it can allow you to kind of get away. Most people don't.
Sense, yeah.
So I will share with them if they're curious enough to ask, and I'm always happy to offer up what I know around the negative, ramifications of drinking when you have health goals. But it's not something I necessarily drive home. However, I will say that the majority of my students that work with me inherently end up drinking less.
They do?
Yeah.
And do you think that's just it being inspired by you or wanting to, when they're weakest for themselves, doing it for you? Or what do you think is happening there?
I mean, it could be a number of those things. I think wanting it for themselves is ultimately like the only way that it's ever going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Certainly permanently, yeah.
Having somebody that they know is strongly in their corner that they can reach out to at any time, because I always want to be, sort of that AA buddy if they need it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I necessarily go anymore because I utilize my story here to be spreading the message. But I think that knowing that when somebody that you are following for guidance is also practicing what they preach, it definitely creates a stronger affinity towards trying to adopt it into your own lifestyle as well.
Mm-hmm. Are there any challenges that you face as an individual, socializing in party environments like a company Christmas party, or going out to dinner with, 2 or 3 couples and everybody's drinking wine? Is that a challenge that you face?
Well, fortunately for me, I have my support system at home, which is my wife. She's been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
She was somebody who was not a heavy drinker before I knew her, but when she learned of my lifestyle, it definitely has not been prevalent. So,
she does not drink, or
she doesn't drink. I mean, we had a child not too long ago, so for those reasons, she didn't as well. But
the child is like an anchor, and the wife is a support structure.
Yes,
she's about a 1 pound anchor. Or 15.
She's like a 19-pound, 10-ounce anchor now. Yeah, slowly getting heavier, which is why the biceps are getting bigger despite never doing curls.
Uh-huh.
So that for me has been definitely a benefit. But for me, the hardest thing was, in the beginning, so many people were afraid that having alcohol around me was going to induce something, that it was more so I felt uncomfortable being in environments because I could tell other people were uncomfortable of knowing how to act around me. And so from the first 6 months or so, I definitely distanced myself from those sort of atmospheres just to, might as well not play with fire. But now it's not an issue whatsoever. I
you
encourage
don't feel a tug to have a drink if people are drinking around you, or
no, especially after the first instance when I think it was a company Christmas party or something, and all the workers that maybe indulged themselves were not feeling so wonderful the day after. It was like, wow, another reinforcement. And the first time that I ever woke up and was like, wow, I'm so happy I don't drink anymore, was waking up on New Year's Day for the first time, remembering what happened on New Year's Eve, and then going to the gym at like 6:30 in the morning, feeling amazing, crushing the workout and being like, this is what the start of my 2024 is going to be like. This is going to be a great year. Or 2022 or whatever it was. It was such a empowering feeling to finally start the year with like a memory from the night before and like a clear head and ready to just like hit the ground running and make all of the, affirmations of that year come true.
Did you feel like you make any social sacrifices in terms of connecting with people in, environments like a party?
I would say I do not. I think some people who may not be ready to interact with me because they are so threatened by the fact that I'm able to enjoy myself at an environment. And I'm not part of the reason why I like to drink is because I would describe myself as an introverted extrovert. And I tried to use the alcohol to, quell my inhibitions of being able to go talk to people. And then I heard this quote, and I can't remember who it was from, but it was talking about introverts and extroverts. And it was saying introverts aren't people who can't interact in social environments. They just need to recharge privately. And so having that mindset shift and realizing like I spend time with people on a regular basis who have the option of plenty of other coaches to work with. And sometimes they'll ask to leave that coach's schedule to come onto mine, or they'll decide to stay with me for 4 years, as a lot of my students have. Like, I obviously have something that people enjoy. And now I just need to realize that I don't need alcohol to do that. And I'm going to be really tired after this event. I'm going to go home and take a nap and get some great sleep because I don't have alcohol in my system. I'm going to feel great the next day and be ready to do it all over again.
Mm-hmm. How difficult do you think it would be for someone to land in that kind of a place psychologically when they believe that their family life, their social life, their group of friends, their working relationships with clients and and employees and customers. They feel like it's all reliant on alcohol. What would you say to those people?
Find new friends. But no, I mean, it's an easier said than done.
Do you think you need to, or can you just be with them and not drink?
What I discovered with my own experience was there are going to be some of those friends that you can keep, and there's going to be some who are they tie their relationship to you so heavily to the substance abuse aspect that they may not be there anymore.
Okay.
And
they like self-select out, or do you push them out?
It's more like I set my barrier or my boundaries of who I am now.
Uh-huh.
And if I see somebody who, as the night goes on and they get more and more intoxicated, are giving me more and more grief about not drinking, I give them another opportunity. I'll first and foremost, because I am somebody who has learned to, as my wife describes it, be kind but not nice. Meaning I will tell you what you need to hear, but not always what you want to hear. I will first have that conversation of, hey, I need to let you know, when we were out, you were trying to push me towards something that I have very clearly stated led me down a path that is far away from the direction that my life is going now. And I don't want to go back that direction. I do enjoy who you are as a person, not if you're trying to bring me that way. And if we can have a relationship outside of that, I would absolutely love to continue being friends with you. But if that's the only thing that's tying us together, there's millions of drinking buddies. Go to a bar, you'll find a drinking buddy. That's probably a degenerate that I used to be.
Mm-hmm. To wrap this up, I have some questions about, so you're not just serving students, you're serving our team. You're a manager and a leader in one of our locations. How has this journey affected your ability to connect with the people on your team that look up to you as their leader? How has it affected your ability to lead them and exhibit an example?
Well, I think for the most part, I don't really sweat the little things. I recognize what's important: accountability, time management, showing up for your students and delivering a high level of service. I understand that people can go out and enjoy themselves on a weeknight that I would not do, but as long as you're in and able to conduct yourself appropriately, like, I'm not going to harp on you. I may give you some soft guidance, and some encouraging words.
6 a.m. compromise.
Yeah.
Okay.
I might give you some encouraging words, to not do that behavior again. But I think it's just a greater level of understanding and empathy. I was somebody who was struggling for a long time, and I think a lot of people have mental health issues and they learn to cope with them in unhealthy ways more often than not. And hopefully letting people understand I am far from perfect, and I'm more than happy to let you know how far I am from perfect, will allow them to be understanding that when I'm sharing advice to you and giving you any words of encouragement, any guidance of how to be a better coach, it is solely because I truly care about you as a person and I want you to succeed. It's not because I'm, coming from any place of like selfishness or I don't like you or I'm just picking on you. My coaches growing up always said, if I'm not yelling at you, I've given up on you. And I try not to yell at people, but I definitely have that mindset where it's like, I
don't think I've ever heard you raise your voice. You're talking about like increasing the intensity level or
it's more so like if I stop talking to you, there's probably something to be concerned about, because at that point it's like there's no hope. But I think it takes a lot for me to get to that point, and knowing that I was given a very long leash in life to make a lot of mistakes and somehow come out the other side, I want to give people the opportunity and just really expedite and hopefully make sure that they never go down the path that I do. If I see my coaches, fearful or not willing to just take that next step into the growth mindset, it's, sharing where I may have had those apprehensions, the path that it took me down. And like, I want you to stay as far away from that life as you could ever go. So please just trust me, take this step. Ultimately, the worst thing that can happen is you fail. I failed really hard, and I forced myself to fail. So now I've gotten fairly comfortable with failure. But it's still something that, holds people back on a regular basis.
It's a great story. I love it. Thanks so much for being open and sharing all this. It doesn't surprise me that you'd be open with it because of just how you interact with people in general, which is clear an expression of the journey that you've been, or the road you've been down. So thank you again for sharing all of that. And for those of you watching, if you like today's podcast, you can find us at stark.health. That's stark.health. You can also find us on Instagram at stark.health and YouTube at Health is a Skill.